Hi guys, Claudia Boleyn here. So today's video is based on some requests I've had. So I am taking requests. If you see something that you think is unjust and you want me to kind of comment on it, it might be something that I've not really seen. I'm kind of on and off social media, so I miss things quite a lot of the time. But something that a lot of people have wanted me to talk about recently is Samantha Markle. So I'm going to try and get into this. I've done quite a lot of research. This might be quite long. It's not going to be comprehensive. Like, even just doing the research for this, there is so much to this campaign that this woman has been doing to essentially troll her half-sister. You know, there's definitely something very seriously wrong there. Now, I have to say, because I'm a YouTuber, and I'm sure you can already kind of gauge my thoughts on it, everything that I found here is alleged, or to the best of my knowledge, based on the sources that I have found. I'm going to talk about a sort of trolling campaign that went on, allegedly. I believe Samantha Markle's people are saying she was hacked. So I just have to say that. You know how I feel, but I have to say that just as we go in. Okay, so let's get to it. So most recently, Samantha Markle has come back into the news with a lawsuit. So she's trying to hit Meghan with a lawsuit. So her claim, which is kind of hard to even comprehend, this is an adult woman, 17 years older than Meghan. And her claim, her big wound, is that Meghan apparently lied when she said she was an only child, and that this allegedly caused Samantha humiliation and shame. This is a grown woman. And I just want to say, if I had the misfortune of having a half-sister that acts the way that Samantha Markle acts, I also would say I was an only child and I'd have a restraining order. I mean, I know families can be really, really toxic. And I think before we really dive into this topic, it's worth noting that what we're seeing here is extremely unhealthy. It's obsession, it's abuse. It seems to be, just my reading of it psychologically, is that Samantha perhaps feels unfulfilled in her life. There's heavy jealousy, which is really, really worrying. And you see this in abusive individuals. You know, they are unable to feel happy for people around them or connected to them. They only feel jealousy and envy because on the inside they feel really empty, and actually on the inside they feel really worthless, and that's why they constantly compare themselves to other people. So they can develop these kind of obsessive sort of trolling campaigns, which doesn't just apply to Samantha Markle. And I'm not saying this to, you know, be like, oh, you know, we should feel sorry for her. I would say there is some sort of deep issue or wound going on there. The level of obsession she has to kind of bring Meghan down, but also in a weird way to remain connected to her, which seems very, very odd. And she seems to, in my view, envy Meghan, you know, feel so extremely jealous that she wants to hurt Meghan and she wants Meghan to fail. So she acts in really abusive ways, but then also at the same time, in her mind, she then feels slighted that because of her weird behaviour, Meghan doesn't want anything to do with her. And this is really common in an abuser's mindset. And, you know, this isn't going to be me sitting here going, you know, we should feel sorry for people who are abusive. But there's something wrong there, and it does speak to definitely a feeling of low self-esteem. I don't know what's gone on in that family history that's caused that situation, but what I do know is that Meghan is a victim of it, and there is no excuse, no matter what's gone on beforehand, there is no excuse to continue that cycle and victimize somebody else to make yourself feel better. You know, Samantha Markle appears to me as an obsessive troll. She seems to be obsessively trying to insert herself into Meghan's life, that connection. On the one hand, it's so confused because on the one hand she's trying to claim family, right? She's trying to, let's look at the fact that she actually changed her name. She changed her name to Markle because, you know, it sells. And I think what we're seeing with Samantha Markle is this long campaign of hatred and envy and desperation and a sort of loneliness and a feeling like she's not good enough, which has then turned, which this happens in abusers' minds, rather than being able to think, okay, well, I've got an issue with some self-esteem that I need to look into, they will turn it outwards and they will, you know, push that onto somebody else. And that's important to remember, because in abuse situations, it's all about projection. So although there is a victim that's being abused, it's never about the victim. And that's why victim blaming is so ridiculous, because it's never about the victim. It's always about the abuser and something that they are lacking. They have to feel better than someone. They have to compare themselves to other people. It must be such an exhausting way to live, to be so full of bitterness. And then they can't understand when they see this other person succeeding. So when she's looking and she's seeing Megan succeeding, she can't understand that that's not because Megan's some villain. It's because Megan isn't bitter. And the sad thing is that a lot of people in these positions who are so abusive, if they actually sorted their issues out, they would understand that they have a lot to give society. I do think it's rooted in low self-esteem. That doesn't excuse it, but I'm sure there are ways in which these people can really contribute if they focused more on what they were good at and finding those things and helping other people. They'd feel so much better. But also these people don't want to learn. I don't want to say they're too far gone, but it's rare for them to kind of wake up and come around. I think especially at Samantha Markle's age, I think we've kind of gone past the point of no return there. So of course, as with the rest of the smear campaign, and we see this in smear campaigns, as I've said, against like Jeremy Corbyn here, who was the former leader of our opposition, the smearing of the union leaders, you know, these abuse dynamics, they don't make sense. It doesn't matter that they don't make sense, because they're just another stick to beat the victim with, right? To beat Megan with. Because the tabloids are kind of running with this. And Samantha knows that. It's such an abusive move, because Samantha Markle is doing this with the very tabloids that are pushing Megan towards suicidal thoughts, right? And to a potential breakdown. That is not family. I don't care what anyone says. You know, we live in a society where we victim blame all the time. And sometimes we can act like biology is everything. If you abuse somebody, right, and you contribute to their mistreatment, you don't have to be that person's family. Blood doesn't mean you are that person's family. Some people feel really trapped by abusive family members, and I feel like this would get so much better if as a society we realise that family is more than blood, and if someone's abusing you, then they're no longer part of your family. I don't think Samantha Markle even counts as Megan's family. What has she actually done to be family, other than a blood link, which she is using to drive Megan towards suicide? Because that's got to be the end game, right? There's no empathy there. And that's again what we're seeing. When you look at these situations, if Samantha Markle really felt so wronged, she wouldn't be doing this, would she? Where's the empathy? Where's the understanding? She's not thinking like that. She's just thinking, I have to destroy her. I'm so envious of her. I have to destroy her. And unfortunately, the tabloids are going along with it, despite the fact that Samantha's own children have come forward and alleged that she abused them. Or at least Noelle has. I've seen that Noelle's speaking about that. I'll get to that in a minute. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that her behaviour now is abusive, and that it sounds like the behaviour in the past is a similar pattern of control and abuse and jealousy and using people. The tabloids don't care because they're part of the same abuse system. Now, if Samantha Markle wasn't useful to them, right, in getting at Meghan Markle, they would hate Samantha. They really would. And actually, you know, I'm not going to quote him here because why would I? But Piers Morgan has actually spoken before. Yeah, that wonderful guy. Piers Morgan has spoken about his thoughts on Samantha Markle before. And if even Piers Morgan at this point is saying that you're a troll, that you're obsessive, that you're like a stalker, and that it's quite frightening and weird, you know, what someone's doing just to try and make some money off Meghan's name, but not even just her name, but in trashing her, if that gives you your self-worth. You know, if even Piers Morgan is saying, that's really not right, that's awful, you know there's a problem. You've gone too far, even for Piers Morgan. But this is how our media aids in abuse, right? And they are aiding in the abuse of Meghan. So let's look, and I feel ridiculous even going through this, but let's look at the claim, shall we? So the idea that, you know, Meghan has suggested that she was raised as an only child. And I do feel ridiculous going through it, because I feel this is a grown woman. A grown woman really feels that hurt by the fact that the sister that she repeatedly speaks appallingly of doesn't think of her as a sister. It's ridiculous. This is an actual grown woman, and I feel like people don't think about this. And in terms of the facts, and let's just say, even if Meghan had actually said, do you know what, I've got absolutely no siblings, you know, Samantha's not related to me, that wouldn't even be an issue. you know, if someone's abusive to you in your family, you don't have to claim them as your family. You know, you can say, that's not my family, that's not what I consider family, and I'm not having that. As people, unfortunately, who live in abusive family systems will know, it's very complicated. But Megan also was raised as an only child. So Samantha is 17 years older than Megan. Obviously different mothers. Samantha has said before that she didn't really bring Megan up or anything, which I think is something the tabloids created, because Samantha's actually saying she didn't even say that. But she's saying it was quite normal, like, you know, there was quite a big age difference, like sometimes she would babysit for her. But that's kind of it. I would say that having a 17-year difference, I mean, think about that, right? So this feels really ridiculous even going into it. A baby and a 17-year-old, and the distance that would be between you. I'm not saying that to undermine any sibling bonds that exist with people who might have siblings who are much younger than them. But in this particular situation, it sounds like from Megan's perspective, you know, she was the kid and she was kind of raised like she was an only child, because the siblings that she did have were half siblings and they were so much older than her, so they were probably getting on with their own lives. Still can't get over the fact that this grown woman is so bitter and angry about Megan's success, not realising, as these abusers never do, because they don't think normally, like normal people. They don't think, you know what, if I'm a kind sister, you know, and we have a relationship, then actually we both benefit, you know, we can succeed together. They never think like that, because everything's a competition in their minds. They're so jealous. Jealousy rules their whole life. So it won't have struck her that actually, you know what, maybe Megan needs some support. She's in a difficult spot. And, you know, if she wants to be Megan's sister, then she could have acted like a sister. This woman could have been the beloved big sister of Megan, right? No matter what's happened in the past, she could have changed her life. She could have come around and she could have thought, you know what, I'm going to be there for my little sister. Has she acted like a big sister in any way? Has she acted with kindness, compassion, empathy? No, she's acted like a troll, and worse than a troll, an actual abuser. And she seems to feel like she has the right to abuse Megan because they share the same father. I'm sorry, that's not how the world works. You don't have the right to abuse anybody. Okay, so Samantha is often referred to as Megan's biggest troll. So let's actually have a look at some of this, because the obsession runs deep. And I think looking into this, I was aware that there was some weird obsessive behaviour. I was aware that there was jealousy and unkindness. But even I wasn't quite aware of how twisted it was. It's incredibly dark and worrying, to the point that I was worried about Samantha herself and the people around her, because it's just, it can't be healthy. It's got to be something that consumes every moment for her. So she allegedly had a Twitter account, numerous Twitter accounts, and this is alleged, that she would use to troll Megan and interact with others who were trolling Megan. I have to say this was alleged. Obviously the accounts have been suspended, and I believe Samantha's lawyers are saying that she was hacked. Okay, but that's just, I mean, maybe it's just suspicious that she was hacked by somebody that acted on there exactly like she's currently acting now. I mean, there's not much of a difference in the behaviour, is there? So her Twitter was suspended. And there was a report that she had been harassing Megan for years. Now think about how dark that is and how sinister that is, because Megan's, you know, getting on with her life and she's going through a lot. Can you actually imagine thinking about the fact that a family member of yours, right, who you don't really have much contact with, is spending all their time watching you, obsessing over you, basically kind of like online stalking you, and doing it so frequently that it's like there's nothing else in their lives, like there's nothing else going on in the mind? Like, that's actually quite scary. And I think especially the fact that she's older, I think Samantha being the older sister as well, for me that somehow feels even more you know, intimidating. This is a baby that Samantha claims that, you know, she babysat for. Where's the empathy for that child? You know, you saw Megan when she was a tiny little girl, when she was an innocent child, and now you're doing this. Okay, so some of the alleged tweets, and I have to say they're alleged. Okay, I've never seen anyone so rude and hurtful and heartless and absent to soul in my life. Hashtag Meghan Markle, hashtag Samantha Markle. Love that she's hashtagging her own name here. Shame on you for what you have done to our father. No PR machine can fix this. I retract the Merry Christmas. You don't deserve it. How dare you walk into a church? Now, to anyone right thinking, this is weird. This is really bizarre. The only reason that Samantha isn't kind of, I mean, normal people obviously are looking at this and thinking, oh my gosh, Meghan, get the restraining order, what's going on? But, you know, the tabloids The tabloids like this because it allows them to further hate on Meghan. And let's also not forget the fact that Samantha is to blame, but they are also using her. I would say it seems like Samantha's got some serious issues going on, and they are essentially using her too. I'm not saying she's not to blame, but it's really sick when you think about the tabloids and what they're doing. You know, and it's weird. It's like sending these weird messages like, I retract the Merry Christmas, you don't deserve it. I don't believe Meghan answers. I don't believe Meghan's answered her. It's like she feels so entitled. She's like, and let me tell you, Meghan, let me tell you, I take away those words. Meghan doesn't care. Meghan just wants you to leave her alone. You know, so rude and hurtful and heartless and absent of soul. These people project. Now look, in these situations, it's very easy, I find, to see the dynamic at play and what's going on here, because you look at who's showing empathy, who's trying to understand the other individual, right? Who's expressing confusion and kindness and concern. Unfortunately, with these abusers, they talk about themselves. That's how projection works. That's how they live with themselves, because they can't actually think about the sort of person they are and how empty they feel and how jealous they feel and how deep down they feel like they have to bring someone else down because they're comparing themselves to them and it's not going very favourably. They can't cope with it, so all those things they feel about themselves, all those judgments, they then try and put onto another person to try and bear it. And it doesn't work, it doesn't make them feel better, and it also doesn't help them heal and succeed with their own talents. You know, these messages read like rantings. Really do, it's quite disturbing. Okay, forgive and reunite and have the Christmas spirit. Hashtag Markle, hashtag Kensington Palace, and a peaceful heart. Apparently you're not capable and I don't know enough profane words to articulate how I feel. Wow. And again, these are just rantings and judgments, right? Past, it's like she desperately wants them to get to Meghan. She doesn't seem to realise that she has no power over Meghan. Meghan doesn't want her to be part of her family. Meghan obviously thinks that she's a weird troll, that she's got something very, very wrong going on. And Meghan doesn't want any of that. It's really, really disturbing how Samantha's suddenly acting like, oh, but we're family, I can say it, you know, because we're family. You're not family to Meghan. You don't act like family. You act like a troll. You act like there's something worrying happening here. Like, I'd be very, very concerned. Okay, and then we've got weirder things here, and this is what I'm saying, that it is her fault, but it's weird. It's very weird, and I feel like people are egging her on and not necessarily helping her to get help for herself. Look, she says this. Well, it's not only that, but there is no DNA proof that he is Harry's son, and furthermore there is no proof that Archie or Lily were delivered from the womb, which is a requirement for titles under British law. So here we can see somebody who's so envious, and it's so obvious, you know, she thinks she's being really slick, but she's not. If you understand psychology, it's really obvious what she's doing. She feels so bitterly jealous, right? And think about the feelings of motherhood and parenthood which are coming in here. The things that these people use to attack others with are usually the things that they feel insecure about. So she's attacking the idea that Meghan is like an unfit mother, or she's not a real mother. Think about that in terms of projection. That's essentially the accusation. Meghan's not a real mother, she's just pretending to be one. That's how Samantha feels about herself, I believe. You know, the actual idea that, you know, there's no DNA proof, this desperate need to try and trip Meghan up and, oh look, I'm going to find out that she's done this or she's done that, and it's like she thinks she's some sort of detective, like she's the police or something. It's sad because she's irrelevant to Meghan. She's somehow acting like they need DNA proof because apparently Meghan's pretending to be a mother. And this is a woman who gets invited onto all the tabloid shows. And I'm thinking, where is their duty of care? Right? And I don't even just mean towards Meghan, because it's absolutely disgusting that these things would even be said by someone and they'd be taken seriously. But also, where is their duty of care in terms of Samantha and in terms of the other people that are being exposed to this weirdness? Like, there is a cult of people who genuinely believe, that Meghan was never pregnant, right? And she didn't actually, she wasn't pregnant, you know, she had a surrogate, Archie's not her son, etc. And it's like, I don't believe that that's the case. You know, I think that's quite a bizarre thing to think. But also, just even if that was true, I'm not saying it was true, having a surrogate doesn't make you not somebody's mother. you know? That's not how it works. That's not how it works anyway. There is such a weird obsession here. And she also replies to somebody else, allegedly, you know, her lawyers would say this is a hacker. One says, absolutely, title decide. I do not think these children should be included in the line of succession at all. A title is just a title. To be someone who is actually in line for the throne is a completely different thing. Too many questions about them to be viable alternatives. I wonder what those questions are, because to me it always links back to race. In my mind, it always does. And they won't say it, but I'm pretty sure that's what they mean. And she says, they should not, especially after they attacked the sovereign with a large-scale media war and held the most horrific verbal assault and politically disgraced them on the world stage. These two should be cut off entirely. Bitterness, anger, desperation to see them fall. Not realising that even the royal family themselves, whatever issues there are going on there, would look at somebody like Samantha Markle or whoever this is and think, oh my gosh, right, restraining order time, it's time for the restraining order. So basically her lawyers, when it kind of came out that she had been allegedly trolling Meghan for all this time on multiple accounts, which is weird to think about it. Like, how does that even work? So you go home, I don't know, it's really creepy and sinister when you think about it. You know, if I was Meghan, I would actually feel quite violated by that. But anyway, so that came out and they've basically said that it's likely those statements were made by third parties to defame our client. But due to the urgency of the matter, they're still investigating it. Doesn't seem like they found out who's doing it. It's just interesting, isn't it? You know, these third parties trying to defame the client by saying the same things that Samantha Markle says when she goes on the tabloid show. Yeah, so she's, again, you know, I don't believe it's a theory because several times we also saw photos of her stomach big in the morning and flat at the end of the day. And I was informed that she was picking up her eggs in Los Angeles before Archie. I believe a surrogate was used. I think it should be mandatory that proof of delivery from my sister's womb be provided if any of the children are to have a title, and Archie should not have a title because I believe a surrogate was involved. I was told she picked up her eggs in Los Angeles. See how odd this is? Well, I believe the surrogate has not handed over the baby yet. This is really weird. This is like a stalking and harassment campaign. She keeps repeating herself. It's just not normal. It's this idea that it's about power and control, right? My sister's womb, and she needs to provide proof. This is somebody who in their life feels powerless. This is somebody who feels like deep down they're worthless. So she's got to make other people try and feel powerless. And then she thinks she's got a right to say, oh, Archie shouldn't have a title. Sorry, isn't she claiming, if she's claiming that they're sisters, that's your nephew and your niece? Call me crazy here, but I actually don't think that's how you'd want an auntie to behave towards those children. If it was me, I would never, ever want my children anywhere near her ever again. She also says, gee, I agree. Hey, what happened to Archie and Lilibet? Do they really exist? At what point are people going to realise that there is something very wrong here? Like, it's really, really disturbing. It makes me feel, you know, when you're kind of reading through something and it gives you like the kind of creepy shiver feeling. You know, it's horrible. It's really, really horrible. She's also trying to track a timeline, right? So think about this. This woman is actually trying to create a timeline to track when Meghan was pregnant, right? And coming up with these weird conspiracy theories. She can't just, and this is the sadness of the situation. Obviously, Meghan is the victim. The sadness is that this woman must feel so empty. She feels in her mind, she compares herself to Meghan, right? She constantly compares herself to Meghan, which isn't what she needs to be doing. I think it's actually tied to her sense of self in some ways. I think that her lacking in things, she doesn't have any actual confidence in herself and who she is. All she knows how to do is to lash out at somebody who she envies, who deep down, in a weird way, I know it sounds really weird, but I think in a weird way she probably wishes in hindsight, wow, wish we had more of a connection. But it's coming out in this weird, scary way. And I think because it's family, I think a lot of people, you know, are more likely to, oh, you know, let it slide. But I just think about it like this. If this was a randomer, right? If this was some random person in the public doing this, a stalker, because that's essentially what this is, would we not be actually really worried? I don't think she should be getting away with it just because she's a half-sister. And I'm just really appalled that more people in our media aren't putting a stop to this. She's also got a sudden interest in, you know, oh, the British law. You know, there's no proof that Archie and Lily were delivered from the womb, which is a requirement for titles under British law. Do you know what, Samantha? It's actually none of your business, because you're not part of that family. You know, I feel like she vicariously wishes, oh, maybe I'm part of it through Meghan somehow. No, she's nothing to do with any of it. You know, none of those people know who she is or care who she is. She's nothing to do with anything. She's just trying to connect herself to it and be like, oh, you know, British protocol. If we're looking at British protocol, I can tell you right now that for all the many faults of the royal system, right, and I know them, there are many, many faults there. This is the sort of thing that they would absolutely shudder at, right? Somebody that was selling their story to the tabloid, they would think, what an odious individual, what an actual danger, right? And it makes more and more sense, you know, I'll get to this in a bit, but the idea that, so Meghan has cultivated a relationship with one of Samantha's daughters, Ashley, is her niece, and it sounds like the background in that family was quite difficult, which, you know, I think we can see some evidence of with what's going on here with Samantha, etc. And that's another thing which is really interesting, you know, because this idea that, you know, Meghan is this villain and she's making up the fact there's abuse, etc. What we're seeing right now is an older woman in the family capable of abusing her in this way, right? So just think about that in terms of the family dynamic. So for a long time this woman's thought this is okay and nobody stopped her. That tells me certain things about the dynamic, is all I'll say. Basically, in the Netflix documentary, it was said that obviously at the time when Harry and Meghan were getting married, the royal family is very much big on PR. So every decision has to go through, you know, PR, what's going to look good, what's not going to look good. And they thought it would create a situation if the daughter was invited and not the mother, because it would create speculation about why is the mother not being invited. And essentially it would threaten to kick Samantha off, wouldn't it? Samantha is now acting like, oh, you know, Ashley was lied to because Meghan said it was because of me. I don't really think that what she's saying, maybe if she'd acted differently I might believe her, but I don't, because if this is how she acts when she's snubbed by somebody she claims she hates anyway, she does this kind of thing, she seeks to destroy. I can imagine that the people around the royal family would be advising, do you know what, just stay away from that whole thing, because that's too dangerous. Like, we don't want anything to do with that. It's not good PR. Oh, we've also got Samantha here. I've just seen, I forgot to say this. She's suggesting that Harry's not the father of Archie. This is a woman who didn't actually... I'm going to go here. I'm going to say it because I think she's abusing Meghan enough. She's caused enough harm to enough people. She speaks a lot about parenthood, right? So the idea that she's fixated on is that Meghan isn't a real parent, right? So she's not a good parent. She's not a real parent. She's a liar of a parent. And people project. So we know that she did raise Noelle, but Noelle got out of there. And it's quite triggering, but I think we should actually look at what Noelle herself has spoken about. So Noelle's words are that Samantha should never have been a mother, that she had abusive tendencies, that when Noelle was about 9 or 10, Samantha used to scratch her, she'd pull her hair. This is backed up by another member of the family, Rosalind, who can support and vouch for Noelle, and she says she remembers vividly a day when Noelle had a pair of shoes in the living room and Samantha just started abusively screaming at her when she was a kid, just basically screaming and intimidating the child, and it became like a tirade. And apparently she said, that's my effing daughter, I'll treat her how I want to. Her excuse, Samantha's excuse according to those two, is that she would say, I'm not beating her. So in her mind it wasn't abuse because she wasn't physically beating Noelle, which obviously we know, if this is correct, and I believe Noelle 100%, if this is correct, then that is abuse, and that is something abusers do. You know, they'll always say, oh, it's not really abuse because, you know, it will be like, if it's emotional abuse, oh, but I didn't hit you. And then if it's physical abuse, it will be, oh, I only slapped you. And it just keeps getting worse and worse because it will be, okay, I did that to you, but you pushed me to it and you didn't have to go to the hospital. That's how these people think. It's pretty obvious that that's really disturbing. These are the signs of someone who's abusive, who's obsessed with power and control, because when you abuse a child, like your own child like that, this is somebody who feels, probably in the mind of these perpetrators, you know, they would feel low self-esteem, they would scream at their child, they would make them feel lesser, because they're projecting all their own insecurities, their own instability onto that child who can't speak back, who can't do anything against it, who has no power. It's about ownership and it's about control, and the idea that Noelle says, she said, if it's not bleeding and there's nothing broken, there's no abuse. Also, you know, what she's saying about, it's my daughter and I'll treat her how I want to. That's not motherhood, that's ownership. So it's actually treating a human being as if they are there for her to work out her temper on. So we have a pattern in what Noelle is saying with what we are seeing now with Samantha's behaviour, which is ownership, these kind of tirades, these rants, these feelings of insecurity which get projected onto other people. We're seeing a tendency to be extremely abusive. And the idea that, you know, there's no shame involved in it. You know, it's not that she'll tweet something about Meghan and then feel bad about it. It's an entitlement. And it's worth looking at, you know, this is also a younger woman in the family. So this is how, according to Noelle and what we're seeing from Samantha, this is how she operates. Noelle says she wouldn't take her to school, and that when she did that, she would sometimes lie to the school and say that Noelle was refusing to go, so Noelle would be in trouble. She also says, Noelle says she was bullied into blaming herself as a child, and she wondered if it was herself that was the problem, and that it was something that she did. It seemed like Samantha, according to Noelle, threatened Noelle that if she called her dad to come and get her, she'd get beat. So it's about complete control. It's about ultimatums. It's about control via intimidation. And it's basically saying that you can't leave, which is essentially also what's happening in the mentality of what's happening to Meghan from Samantha. Because even though there's distance, Meghan can't escape it. You know, we have here, Noelle was being abused. Noelle was feeling, you know, like she didn't know what to do. She thought she was the villain. But then also she wasn't allowed to leave. And doesn't that just sum Samantha up, right? It's like Meghan's also not allowed to sever that, because that in her mind makes her really angry. Samantha seems to think she has the right to abuse people, potentially because there's a family link, but she feels like she has that right and that she's justified, and that people aren't allowed to sever that. Noelle actually says, if you can't trust your mother, who are you supposed to trust? She says that Samantha and her boyfriend at the time pulled Noelle out of school so she could help around the house, and that the boyfriend had a real temper and he took this out on Noelle and Samantha, both of them. And I do obviously feel pity for Samantha in terms of what she went through. Of course I do. But Noelle was really scared of him, and she used to call her dad to try and pick her up when things got really scary, when it escalated into physical violence. And when it came to a situation between Samantha deciding one of them was going to have to go, she decided it wasn't going to be the abusive partner, it was going to be Noelle. So this is from her own daughter, right, who's showing a pattern of abuse. It's all the same patterns. Abusers will always use the same patterns, and I go on about this so much with so many different systems. It's always the same playbook. Now Ashley says, that's another daughter, that she was raised by her grandparents since she was 2. Now Samantha has said, oh, it's because it was the best thing for Ashley. I mean, probably yes. I mean, I would agree. I mean, I wouldn't want anyone to go through what it sounds like Noelle had to go through. But now this in the context of what this obsession she has with Meghan as a mother, which she had for a while, and the obsession that it's a fake pregnancy. Do you see what I mean about projection? Because these are things that obviously Samantha feels insecure about, in my opinion. She feels like she wasn't up to scratch as a mother. She was in fact a bad mother, that she's not really worthy of, you know, having those children because she hurt at least one of them, Noelle, and she scared them, and she completely messed that up. So she's projecting that onto Meghan. That's all it is. To me, that's all that whole thing, the whole fake pregnancy thing is, because she feels insecure about her own actions. And, you know, this anger she has that, oh, you know, Meghan's stolen Ashley. Not realising, and that's the tragedy, that if she worked on herself and she sorted things out and she was a better, nicer person, then maybe she wouldn't need to be jealous, because maybe there could be some sort of relationship between her and her daughter. It is her that is the obstacle. Every single time, but yet, of course, it's being blamed on Meghan. Just like when Noelle was younger, it was being blamed on Noelle. So we've also got Samantha, you know, apparently she referred to Meghan as Cruella de Vil. And then we've got some really interesting ones here, because I feel like this is so, if you've been in one of these systems yourself, you might understand the weird rantings and the weird things that are said, right? So people who aren't part of these systems, I'm happy for you. But if you are, you'll recognise this. So let's look at this. She was embarrassed about the family. It's totally reciprocal. The Gloria Swanson bit, the fake humanitarian act, fake British accent is also ridiculous. So again, it's this weird rantings. When is Meghan faked to have a British accent? Like, I've never known that. Sorry, tough love exists, and just because I speak out about some things does not mean I don't love her, but I can call out things I do not agree with. If nobody likes it, it's too damn bad. Her very idea of love is abuse, isn't it? That's not love, that is abuse. I would say if that's her idea of love, as it seems to be, then I hope she doesn't love other people, because they're just going to get hurt. That's not love. She also tweeted, Harry is a wuss to allow the Duchess of Nonsense to mistreat everyone who has been close to her, especially her family. And it's interesting, isn't it? You know, I know I keep going over this, but she keeps clinging on to Meghan as her family like it's her property. Like, it's okay, I'm allowed to abuse her because this is family business. Keep it in the family. No, how about we don't keep it in the family? Because it seems like the stuff that was kept in the family, or Samantha wanted kept in the family, was severe abuse. Really, let's look at that. Samantha also released a so-called tell-all book about Meghan, despite them having a distant relationship, and it's called The Diary of Princess Pushy's Sister. It's so infantile. It's so embarrassing. And also, imagine defining yourself based on this woman that you apparently hate, right? It's so embarrassing. You know, she's still trying to, oh look, I'm gonna dish the dirt on her. I'm worth something because, you know, I'm connected to this woman that I apparently hate. It doesn't make any sense. So Samantha is claiming that Meghan is presenting a rags to riches story, which I don't believe I've seen her claim. I mean, I think it is quite a big leap to marry into the royal family. I think there's quite a difference in, you know, where she came from. But again, let's think about this. Let's not even entertain some of this abusive mindset, and let's actually consider the fact. Say Meghan was, right, say she was laying it on thick, which I don't think she is. I think everything she said makes sense. I think it gets twisted by the tabloids, and then people believe what the tabloids say, because that's how a smear campaign works. But let's just say that, you know, Samantha was a normal sister. Let's say she's a sister because she wants to be a sister at this point, apparently. Let's say that, you know, oh, she thinks that Meghan's, you know, pretending it's rags to riches. How do you think a normal big sister would act, right? 17 years older. Do you think they'd start a troll campaign? I get so fed up of how our society allows abusers to abuse people, right? Because we live in a victim blaming society. But this is one of the weirdest things I've researched. The judge in the case has said that they are actually struggling to see how Meghan's statements were even defamatory. And also remember, it's, you know, the First Amendment right, which is to the freedom of speech and the freedom of expression, which is really important. So I think it's pretty likely that this is going to get thrown out, but that's not what it's about, you know. It was always about just another way for Samantha to keep connecting those two individuals, right? To claim Meghan as family, to exert power over her, and to continue getting her money from the tabloids so she can keep doing appearances. Because Samantha knows that if she wasn't talking about Meghan, no one would want to hear what she was talking about anyway. You know, why would anyone be interested in what she had to say at all? She knows that. And the truth is, let's be honest here when we talk about abuse. I've said this before, but we live in a society where we often blame a victim for coming forward about abuse, and we get more angry about people talking about their experiences and how they've been abused than we actually are angry about abuse itself. I would say there's enough evidence here, like just in the past couple of years, and that's, you know, not even getting into the experiences with her children and the rest of the family. I think there's enough here to say that the woman is actually defaming herself. You know, her being called out for her own terrible behaviour, she seems to be putting onto Meghan. You know, how dare Meghan make people think that I'm an obsessive troll that's obsessed with her? It's like, Samantha, you're doing that to yourself. Samantha is showing herself to be insecure, unkind, bitter, jealous, angry and abusive, right? With no compassion and no pity and no kindness. And then she's angry because it's apparently... she doesn't want people to think that about her. Don't behave in that way then, really. Just don't behave that way. And let's just look to kind of wrap this up. I'm aware this is a really long one, but I just can't believe the extent of this, and I think it deserved to be a longer video. Let's have a look at what Meghan said in her Netflix documentary about Samantha. Suddenly, it felt like she, Samantha, was everywhere. I don't know your middle name. I don't know your birthday. It upsets me that Meghan even has to think about the fact that this woman related to her by blood has become this obsessive troll cheering on her downfall. I mean, I just can't even believe it. I feel so bad for Meghan. I think it's quite clear there's a lot more Meghan could say, but she hasn't. I mean, look at the words of Noel. I think they speak for themselves if we look at those. I think most of us are pretty aware of what's going on here. It's just that the tabloids are platforming her. I believe Dan Wootton even said, he described her as Meghan's wonderful half-sister Samantha. And it doesn't surprise me because Dan Wootton is often victim blaming Meghan and being quite abusive himself. But I wonder what is so wonderful about a woman who allegedly, according to her daughter, and with a witness who can vouch for it, abused her daughter. I'm wondering why they can't wake up and see that she's an abuser, essentially, according to her daughter and according to what we've seen. Anyway, thanks for sticking with me for this really, really long one. I hope this is kind of what you wanted. It's an awful one to kind of look into. I just want to say that I do understand, you know, a lot of us have experienced similar such things. Unfortunately, this doesn't just happen to celebrities, you know. If you're from a toxic family system, an abusive family system, this kind of thing can happen, you know, and that's why I think it's really worthwhile talking about when it's happening so publicly, so that we can kind of learn from it and kind of spot it. Because if it's happening to you, you can kind of be able to figure out what's going on, like the projection that's happening there, and also know that no matter what the tabloids say, normal people are completely behind you, so, you know, you're all right. Yeah, I love you loads. I'll see you really soon. Let me know if there's anything else that you want me to discuss. My PayPal is in the description box if you would like to buy me a coffee. Yeah, be well. Love you loads. Bye.